Hey folks, welcome to another evening with me on our morning space with Kalu Aja. Apologies, the earlier link was broken, so we have to create this new link for the same X Spaces chat on money, the economy, and personal finance. We're here every week, every Sunday, 7 p.m. West African time, and of course, we're talking about the economy, personal finance, will be a topic. I want to make it personal to you. How does it affect your wallet? And this week, of course, we're talking imports. The title says, should Nigeria import cars that can be assembled locally? Of course, the question is really revolving around the issue of trade, imports, exports, and of course, the effect of that trade on the Naira. Because the direct effect of this question has to do to the exchange value of the Naira. If you import more than you export, of course, your currency gets weakened. So it gets devalued or it gets depreciated, whichever it is. If you export more, then of course, your currency then gains strength. So we're not just talking cars, the same though the topic says cars. We're talking about the trade balance of Nigeria, if Nigeria should be importing or what it can produce locally, right? And if we should not, then why are we doing that? And just lay the economic premise of our discussion today. Economics is very, very simple. I mean, how a country gets wealthy is a very, very simple proposition. The more the country has net exports, that's net exports, the more the country gets wealthier. So net exports, of course, translate to mean that you are importing and you are exporting. But that you have a net export position means that you are earning more that you are spending to import those inputs. The largest importers in the world are the United States of America and China. The largest exporters in the world are United States of America and China. There's a reason why those two are both large importers and both large exporters. China imports inputs and exports finished goods. US exports finished goods and also imports finished goods. It doesn't matter if you're importing finished goods or exports finished goods. All that matters is that the net to the nation has got to be positive on your side, i.e. on the export side, which means that you are earning. Dubai does a lot of imports and exports. But Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, those are economies that you don't really look at as a benchmark, because these are resource-rich nations that can afford to peg their currency and not have any adverse effects, right? But for a nation like Nigeria, like China, like Ghana, like Brazil, all those other nations, you've got to run an economy where you can have net exports, because net exports give you the wealth that you can then plow back into your economy and then grow the economy. That's the position. So the question is now, is Nigeria having a net export position or a net import position? If you look at just trade alone, i.e. we're exporting crude oil, we're importing PMS, just the trade alone, Nigeria has maintained a positive trade balance for a very, very long time, which means that we are exporting more physical items. We export more petrol, more crude oil. We export more agricultural produce, say cocoa, and cashew nuts, than we import these products. The problem is when you look at the invisible trade, things like paying school fees, things like going abroad to do healthcare. Those are invisibles, i.e. there's nothing physical coming to the border or leaving the border. When you look at those invisibles, that's when you see the real damage that being caused to the Nigerian economy. Because we are negative on that number by a huge mile. It's like 17 trillion, it's like maybe 4 trillion. It's negative to a huge mile. So Nigeria makes all this money from the exports of crude oil. If you compare it to the imports that we do on trade, we make a lot of money, but then we turn around and then we import healthcare, education. Those two items, those are the invisibles that we do a lot of imports on, and it just wipes away whatever exports or net export profit that we make. And that's why the Naira keeps on going lower. Even if you ignore the fact that we're not pumping enough crude oil out, just looking at the demand on the Naira, by the folks going to school abroad and going to medical care abroad, that's just a lot of pressure on the Naira, and the Naira cannot cope with all that pressure. So the Naira has got to be made expensive to reduce the demand for Nigerians in Nigeria trying to get the dollars to spend on this quote-unquote import of healthcare and medical care. That's really the problem. So we then come to our question. The way an economy gets rich is to say we're going to pick those items that we normally import and we'll do what's called import substitution. So we substitute a local product for an imported product. Nigeria did it with cement. Before we had the great cement substitution plan, when our policy was called back then by President Obasanjo, Nigeria imported a lot of cement. Fully bagged cement, retail bagged cement, bulk cement, it didn't matter. Nigeria imported a lot of cement. If you go back in time, there was something called the cement armada. When Nigeria was developing so fast, we were importing a lot of cement that the ships lined up to offload in the Lagos ports for miles into the sea. The so-called cement armada. We had lots of demand, very, very few ports. So we did a lot of cement imports. President Obasanjo came and said, listen, I'm going to pass a policy. If you can build cement factories in-house, I will ban the import of bulk cement. The idea being, of course, instead of importing, do backward integration, expand your factories, start to do cement locally so that we spend less on cement. The long and short is that many folks took that policy seriously. Mr. Dangote, before this policy, Dangote was an importer of rice and sugar. That was it. He was a rich guy, but not the richest guy even in Nigeria by a mile. But he took the cement policy very seriously. He bought into BCC, he bought cement factories, he expanded. Remember that when Dangote started, there were local cement guys like WAPCO, like cement coming out of Nigeria, already in Nigeria. They did not expand as fast as Dangote. Dangote ran with that policy and he built his well. This well that is not rich as Africa was built from cement, from import substitution. Today we can argue that Nigeria has quote unquote cut out the imports of cement. We can argue about the pricing of the retail cement, but as a policy or as a part of the economy, Nigeria is a net exporter now of cement from being a net importer of cement. And whenever we want to argue that Dangote has contributed more to paying taxes locally, he has employed people, he has increased the capacity utilization of the Nigerian stock market. If you look at the industrial subsector, Dangote and Boa Cement alone caused that industry sector to now become a positive contributor to stock market returns. Just those two companies. Nigeria in 2022, I believe, had the best performing stock market in the entire world. I think it was 2020 or 22. Nigeria had the best performing stock market in the entire world. And that was driven solely by Dangote. Buying back shares of Dangote, pushing up the price. Dangote Cement is the largest quoted stock in Nigerian Stock Exchange. And all this came about because we did import substitution. Remember, before that policy of import substitution was passed, we were a net importer of cement. Now, with that policy being passed, Nigeria exports cement. We've created wealth around cement. Retail investors have said that the cement, they are doing very, very well. It has contributed to Nigeria's stock market as a whole. They are doing very, very well. The state that the cement is in has earned a lot of taxes and all. So you can see the effect of policy and action and wealth creation. So now let's go to cars. If you follow the policy on cars, there's been an automated policy, and I'm going to give you the exact name, right? So in 2023, Nigeria passed the Nigerian Automotive Industrial Development Plan. This is the plan for automotive sector in Nigeria that basically says this is how we want to approach the automotive sector, subsector. Before this plan, if you have been following Nigeria and the work of Mr. Aganga, the former Minister of Commerce, he did a ton of work around the issue of local siting of industries in Nigeria, especially with the car sectors. They passed this policy back then that if you imported CKD, you did not pay duty. So if you imported completely knocked down or semi-knocked down vehicles into Nigeria, you did not pay duty. But if you imported the full car, you paid duty. So what was the point? That meant that companies like Ford, that were owned, the local franchise of Ford in Nigeria was owned by Coscharis. All Coscharis have to do is to set up an assembly plant in Nigeria. then import the same cars CKD into Nigeria. So it's the same Ford pickup, but when he brings it into Nigeria, because he's assembled in Nigeria, he pays no duty at the port. What does Nigeria gain? Nigeria loses the duty at the port, but construction has got to hire local workers to assemble that CKD factory, that truck in Nigeria. The construction has got to pay power, it's got to pay water, it's got to pay salaries for the workers that will assemble that car in Nigeria. It's got to pay taxes, of course. So that commerce built around the CKD is what Nigeria was targeting. And it was hugely successful. It was because of that policy that you saw Toyota, you saw Kia, you saw Hyundai, you saw Volkswagen, you saw all those companies recreate their local assembly factories in Nigeria. If you're not aware, Nigeria has a ton of local assembly of cars in Nigeria that bring in CKD because the duty is zero, and are able to then couple those vans and trucks in Nigeria for use in Nigeria. So we capture the value locally, and because we want to do that capturing locally, we've created local jobs, and you can argue we've created local commerce around that. In Nigeria, we have, I would say, lots of local car manufacturers, but Nord and Innocent stand out as Nigerian grown, homemade grown models. We have Pan. Peugeot of Nigeria has been in Nigeria for a long time, right? But Pan is from France, right? So even though it is local, it's in Kaduna, they've had their roots in Nigeria for a very long time, they have an assembly plant and all that. Nord, Innocent are locally created, locally owned, started from Nigeria, employed in Nigeria, they are only based in Nigeria. So they have a special status, if you want to call that, in Nigeria. So that brings us now to our question. If it works with cement, when we passed the policy that said you cannot import cement into Nigeria. You have to build a factory in Nigeria, make the cement in Nigeria, and Nigeria will reciprocate by blocking the borders to cement imports. So we block the borders, but if you are local, you can make your cement and export. It has worked with cement. So you now have the largest companies in the stock exchange are Bua and Dangote. Cement, it has worked. They employ thousands of Nigerians, pay thousands in duty. We also have the same policy in cars. When we say if you import CKD into Nigeria, you pay no duty. CKD, you pay no import duty, you pay no VAT, you pay no import levy if you import it into Nigeria. The only time you pay is on trucks. You pay an import duty of 10% on trucks if you bring in trucks. I don't know why, but if you bring in trucks, you pay zero. On gas powered, you pay nothing. But if you bring it in fully built, you pay 20% import duty. That's on all those cars across the board, right? And for trucks, you also pay an import levy. So for vehicles 4 years and older, you pay an import levy of 15% plus an import duty of 20%. That's what you pay. So the Nigeria has passed the policy. In cement it worked. In cars we also have a policy. So why have car imports, the local substitution of car import, not worked as well as the cement industry has worked? We would argue that okay, Nigeria will have limestone and maybe gypsum and just get the power to make cement. But that's not the point. The point is other nations have done this. Indonesia did this with their car sector. Korea did this with their car sector. Even Japan, you can argue, did this with their car sector. They didn't ban imports, but they put a very, very high tariff on import of foreign cars. The same that Nigeria has done. So what is the problem? Why is Nigeria not maximizing the manufacturing base to make cars in Nigeria? Remember, if you go back to the years in 1960, 1970, Nigeria was a massive manufacturer of cars. You had Range Rover, you had Leland, you had Volkswagen. Go to Lagos. There's a massive Volkswagen plant in Lagos. Leland in Ibadan, Mercedes-Benz in Enugu, Anaco is right there. So Mercedes-Benz was Nigeria, Volkswagen was in Nigeria, Peugeot was in Nigeria. All these companies were in Nigeria. So what happened? We passed lots of policies and they left. So these policies just to bring them back into the country. You say, hey, if you come back, we can allow you to make cars in Nigeria. We have the Chinese companies also that can make cars cheaper and all that. So why are they not taking advantage? Well, the answer is very simple. Because the Nigerian government is not patronizing, or should we say, it's not keeping to its own policy. If we have gone the route to pass these good policies, then the Nigerian government, as the largest buyer, should patronize. Yes, the Nigerian government is buying innocent cars, they are buying Nord cars, but why stop? Why not continue to buy? Why not going to mandate that any government agency that is spending on automobiles must buy an assembled in Nigeria automobile? It doesn't have to be Nord, it doesn't have to be innocent, it just has to be assembled locally. That means if the National Assembly wants to buy SUVs, they can say, well, we're going to buy your SUVs, but assemble the Lexus SUVs in Nigeria. Same with the customs, we're going to buy your SUVs, we're going to buy 200 SUVs with a cost going to cost about 21 billion, but you have to assemble locally. This is what South Africa did. During COVID, South Africa has a massive deficit in manufacturing output because of COVID. So South Africa released a $585 million stimulus, million rand stimulus to the economy, and they used that stimulus to buy cars locally. So when the South African government bought cars locally, the car companies were able to maintain their workforce and not sack them during COVID. So that's just a way of paying a stimulus, because those workers are getting their salaries ultimately from the purchaser, which is the South African government. They release the money to the economy. The car companies use that money to build cars, maintain capacity, and the workers were employed during COVID. And today, their economy is better for it. This is targeted stimulus. You spend money to create local output, to retain local jobs, and your GDP grows. So why aren't we doing the same? So again, it's cars the topic. We're talking across the board. Why is the national government not mandating the purchase of anything that can be done locally, mandating that locally, so that we grow the local economy, create jobs locally, even help the Naira? That's the pathway to wealth, which is why I want to talk about it today. So again, guys, that's my data point. I will try to release more as we go along. But again, I want to hear from you guys. Like, what is your experience? What are we doing wrong? Do you think can be done better? DMs are open. Request to speak. Let's talk about it. Should we import not just cars, but anything? If anything can be produced locally, should we have that policy to say anything we can grow locally? Rice, cars, cocoa, chocolates, anything that can be grown locally, even schools, even healthcare. Why should we insist that it is imported? I agree, import may have a better quality, but how do you get the quality up if you do not patronize local ones? So it's your call, guys. I've got the DMs. I'm going to go to them very soon. Joe Apple, the first guy. What's on your mind, sir? Let me go to Jim.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Mr. Kalu. I so much appreciate. I just joined your this thing today, your space today, and I so much appreciate the force that came out from your mind. Thank you very much for what you do on Twitter and for educating everybody else when it comes to financial matters. I think my point is just very straightforward. I think you said everything. Anybody trying to disagree with anything you said is just trying to pay a joke. Because the matter of the fact is the government is the largest employer of labor in any country. The government controls where the economy is. So anything in government and organizations, companies coming to Nigeria that wants to come to Nigeria, the first thing they look at for is what is the Nigerian government actually doing? What is their policy towards this? Now, at the moment, it is very difficult for any organization, any company to come and say you want to come and invest in Nigeria as a country. And the reason why is because of the fact that the policy changes. And even the policy changes, they don't make sense. I think, for example, what you just said, the company, we have organizations making cars, some making cars in Nigeria, but Nigeria is still patronizing imported Toyota cars. Like, why can't you just tell Toyota, we want to buy these cars, but you know what, guys, you have to start manufacturing them in Nigeria. Very simple.
Yeah.
If Toyota feels this thing, if Toyota feels, this is going to be like a good business for us, and Toyota can see that, Nigerians buy a lot of Toyota cars, Africans buy a lot of Toyota cars. Why don't you start manufacturing those cars in Nigeria? It makes no sense. But it's just dumb policies. And this is the kind of dumb policies in which the government makes. Whether it be PDP, whether it be APC, I don't care who is in government. They have been making dumb policies. policy, right, left, and center. Sometimes you just wonder that the legislators, like, what are they actually even doing? The guys in the National Assembly, how do they think? Like, it's unfathomable just to think that the country is spending money on it. Everybody's complaining about the fact that there's no forex, but the country still has billions that they want to use that forex that is not available. They want to use that forex to buy a new podcast. Just imagine.
And again, your point is good. The point that the legislators that should be the ones passing these policies and holding the federal government to account are the ones actually damaging the same policy. You know, the laws are there that says that if you bring in this thing CKD, you get incentive, and this will pass into law. Then the same legislators then go and say the cars that are made locally are not good enough. They say it openly. And in short, they're marketing for the foreign assembled cars. They are marketing for foreign assembled cars when their salaries are paid from the locally assembled companies. Foreign companies don't pay tax in Nigeria.
Exactly. Like all this company, saw, no bottle. The first thing is any organization America, say for example, they are looking to come into Nigeria. The first thing they look for is how is Nigerian government encouraging the local the companies that are already making cars in Nigeria? How is the government encouraging them? If they can see that the government is not doing enough for them, then it makes no sense for them to come because the same action is also going to be meted to them. But just as you said, these companies, Sun and all of the likes of them, they are making tax in Nigeria. They are the ones employing Nigerians. They are the ones going to be paying taxes. They are the ones employing Nigerians that are going to be paying income taxes. They are the ones going to be paying company taxes at the end of the year. And you are not encouraging them. What do you expect? And at the end of the year, everybody will be like, the government is not making enough money. The government is surely going to struggle.
Sure.
If you don't make the problem is the legislators, they don't know what they should be doing. They don't make enough policies. They don't collaborate with the government. Despite the fact that both the same party, the same party is in charge of the executive and is in charge of the legislative arm of government. There should be like a collaboration between both arms of government to try and say, okay, how do we help the country? Just take Nigeria as a company. Okay, say Nigeria is a company. Just say Nigeria Limited. Or Nigeria PLC, anything you want to call it, and just look at it from the fact that the executive arms and the board members, they are not actually talking together.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense. There has to be a collaboration, but everybody the only thing they are interested in is let's just go in there, let's just enjoy ourselves after 4 years again.
Let me read this to you, right? There was an executive order. The number of the executive order is called 003. Executive order 003. Let me read to you what that order says. Just follow with me. Number one, enforce all federal NDAs with provisions for purchase in their approved budget to patronize locally assembled vehicles. This is a presidential executive order. 003 says that this policy, the Nigerian Automotive Industrial Development Plan, will enforce all federal NDAs, which customs is, which the Nigerian Assembly is, will enforce the implementation of, they will buy all their cars locally, right? The names of such NDAs granted approval will be published in the national dailies. Enforcement shall include all private companies working on government-funded projects to purchase project vehicles from Nigerian manufacturers. 70% of vehicles procured will be locally assembled. 100% of vehicles procured will be locally assembled by year 8 of the policy. So the point I'm making is this, right? They had a clear policy and they essentially said, this is what we're going to do. If you are working on a federal contract, if you're a federal NDA, you must buy a locally assembled car. Executive order from the President 003, dated May 2023. Same party has been in office. So why is this not being done? That's the so if the president's order can be flouted and the Nigerian customers can spend 21 billion, then what are we talking about, right? Because the Nigerian customs is under the Ministry of Finance, And the Minister of Finance in Nigeria is the coordinating minister of the economy. If the coordinating minister of the economy cannot implement his own executive order under his own department, then what the hell is he doing there? Is it what's on your mind? Help us out here.
Carlo, thanks. Always great conversation. Thanks for having me. Good evening, everyone. I think, in addition to what we are discussing, government agencies and what have you, patronizing and encouraging people to come and establish in Nigeria, please, I want you to speak on this. I have a feeling that just government patronage might not be enough to attract the Toyotas and the Hyundais and co to come into Nigeria, right? Because they will look at running costs, they will look at first of all competition, they will have to compete with other people, but they will look at running costs. We don't have power, we don't have good roads, we struggle with security. I think I have a feeling that those elements is what they will consider more. Then crowning that or to top it up is the fact that Nigerians don't have purchasing power. I can't remember the last time I saw an average Nigerian bought a new car, a brand new car, not Tokumbo. So the only people that buy brand new cars are celebrities, banks, oil companies, and obviously government agencies. But these guys should be looking at the vast majority of Nigerians and looking at what is their purchasing power. So do you think that in addition, do you think that only government agencies patronage is good enough to get Toyota or Jaguar to come into Nigeria? Do you think that, because I'm looking at it, that the running cost, power, security, road, I don't want to look at other little materials, and also, most importantly, purchasing power of majority of Nigerians might just be contributing. What do you think?
I mean, let's just look at raw figures. Without even to just raw figures. How many banks do you have in Nigeria? You've got 25, right? 25 banks in Nigeria. I would say without any error that all those banks across Nigeria, even if they're buying brand new cars, just 2 brand new cars per state. So 25 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 36. What's that answer? 25. Let me do it on my calculator. Let's do it together. This is just banks alone. No? Banks alone. If we do 25 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 36, that's 1,800. If you are only buying 100 cars per bank, we know banks buy more than that. But more than that, so banks alone, as just those banks alone, will give you anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 cars. So in 2022, 10,000 cars were manufactured in Nigeria. 10,000 were assembled in Nigeria. According to what I'm reading here, 10,000, of course, were assembled to use in Nigeria or exported, but 10,000. So if you then add police, customs, all the states that buy cars for operation this, operation that, you add oil companies, you add trucks, you add this, you add that, you are looking anywhere north of 50,000 to 100,000 bought by banks, the state governments, the federal governments, not even individuals, not the private individuals, just those institutions buying. Those cars are imported today. They are all imported today. So if you had a local assembly today and you said, we're going to buy the same cars, but simply make them locally, what would you have? You would then have a situation where, like we used to see in the past, we used to go for trade fair. You see made in Nigeria Peugeot, and they built a frame of a Peugeot, and they were adding the local inputs of that Peugeot. And if you remember when we used to go for trade fair when we were kids, you see that car being built, Nigerian radiator, Nigerian glass, because Nigeria makes glasses, we make radiators, we make all this locally. That's what you have to see from those years to this year. The problem is that we have refused to build on what we had. Remember what I said? In the 1960s and 1970s, Nigeria was a huge manufacturer of cars. Huge. The largest economy in Africa. Our budget for this year is massive. In that budget, what you see, buy Toyota, buy Hayas, buy this. It's always there. We always buy cars. So the money is there. And even if Nord and Innocent are the only guys that you give, if you give them 10 billion every year, we have the Nord guy here on the space. We have the Nord MD on the space here with us. The Nord MD said he buys this press. There's this press he uses to press the bottom of the steel. He said if he gets that press alone, the cost of his cars will fall considerably because he's buying those things already pressed abroad. That's what he's importing. So if Nord knew every year the government's going to purchase 10 billion naira from him every year, he will go to the bank and say, oh, I'm getting 10 billion in sales every year. I would like to borrow 5 billion or so billion from you to import this press. That's what we're talking about, is it? We've got to link it through, and once we do that, you start the process. No car company started today and was successful. Look at the Koreans, look at the Japanese. Have you seen the Toyota, the first Toyotas? You wouldn't drive it. But look at them today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just wanted you to talk about, the day the North guy came, I was also on the space, I think he was talking about steel.
Correct, steel press.
You said something, you asked me a question, what about the actual Kuta and somewhere in Kaduna in the north or something? He said that they don't do flat press.
Correct.
They do what I want, but they don't do flat press. When I was here.
Precisely. And so if Nord was getting 10% of the 21 billion that is going, that's how much is that? That's 20 million. If he was getting that contract today, and it's a country that wants to create jobs and has a policy that says that all federal MDAs must buy locally assembled cars, not just the police, an executive order from the president of Nigeria, executive order 003. It's right there. Labi, what's on your mind? Labi.
Yeah, thanks, Carlo. Good evening, everyone. So, I would say I really agree with what Eze just mentioned as regards to the purchasing power of Nigerians to buy a car. Firstly, looking at setting up a car business, I think Nigeria does not really from a business case point of view, it's not really a market that's, if you look at it now to 5 years, there's a going concern issue. And also another thing I want to talk about is the structural problem. How many people can afford to buy new cars, and also there is no access to credit facilities that you can buy and you can pay little by little. In the West, that's what people kind of enjoyed. Then lastly, I want to talk about Nigerian preference for foreign brands. Like before people even consider buying the likes of Nords. If they see a Toyota brand, they'll go for that first before. So from that angle as well, I don't think it's really a viable business. Setting up a car business in Nigeria.
No, I think Eze's point is correct. The Nigerian purchasing power is very, very low. And remember, these cars are imported. We're not debating that point, but I'm saying that, in any business, you need, let's say you open up a restaurant today, who are your first customers? Your friends and family. Any business you open up, it is your friends and family that are your first customers. It's in business terminology. If you go and try to pitch, what will they ask you? What have you sold? What have you invested? What is your equity in this business? They want to know your friends and family that have first of all purchased from you. So when companies want to come to Nigeria, they will ask you, where is the government buying? Because they are chasing the government money. If Nigerian government is buying cars, look at Morocco. They do a lot of cars for export. Go to America, you will not see any police car that is not Ford or Chrysler or GM. You won't see any police car or anything that is not assembled in America. So, irrespective of the cost, it's a subsidy. It doesn't mean that an innocent car is as good as a Toyota Lexus. But the government is set up to subsidize and to support. It's not a business venture. So we should give we should have a policy, and we already have a policy. The policy says that government will give preference to locally assembled products. It even goes further to say that if you are a procurement officer and you do not give contract to Nigerian manufacturers, you would be either jailed or pay a fine. Jailed, not my words. It's right in the policy. I'm going to put it up now on the Twitter page. It has worked for cement. It worked for recharge cards. Even juice. Fruit juice today, you go to fruit juice, you buy Chivita, you buy Fiber Life. In the past, those were imported. Nigeria passed a policy on import substitution. That's why you saw Chivita. Now, fruit juice everywhere is all Nigerian. It's worked for cement. It worked for a recharge card. It can work across the board. So how do you reduce the cost of a product? You purchase more of that product. If Nord is going to get 10 billion from Nigerian government, federal, state, local government every year, he can invest in capital that will reduce the cost of a car. And he can make a car for a Nigerian market at below 5 million. But you have to patronize him long term. Not today you buy cars from him, tomorrow you don't buy cars from him. Why are you buying Toyotas when you have local pickups in Nigeria? Even if they can't make it here, tell Toyota to assemble it locally here. Toyota has a factory here in Nigeria. Why can't they assemble it locally in Nigeria? Why must it be imported in bulk and pay dollars to Toyota? Why? That's the point we're making, Larry. That's the point. Let's get Victor in here real quick. Victor, what's your take, sir? Follow, I see you.
Thank you very much. So, like the last speaker said, we have very low purchasing power. I want us to look at it from a different angle. We have some kind of inequality in wealth distribution in Nigeria. In as much as you see there's low purchasing power, there are a lot of people with a lot of money, not politically, not ill-gotten wealth. So I was just looking at the angle where iPhone is coming, the Apple phones, the Apple products, Samsung products. It comes out to be a lot of people buying those stuff. Like even the first week, if you launch it, Nigeria to get it. So the only thing I think we should look at is how China and Nigerians love Nigerian products. I think that's where we should start looking at, and I'm like, stop painting Nigerian products bad, or that stigma that a Nigerian thing no work. I've seen it, I think last week. Recently, still hungry, it's not Nigerian stuff. You know what? I think if we start selling that Nigerian stuff works, and also look at the way phones, like phone companies, how they market their products. They get the airlines, get the musicians, get the celebrities to market. And there's something that I believe Nigerians like. When you see some celebrities get something, definitely they'll always want to get it. They always want to feel among. Nigerians will always want to feel among. So I still believe that the likes of North, they can still make it without government. Yeah, they can still make it. However, I still believe that government and banks can still do it. But to speak to your OOT you mentioned, like the crossover you mentioned, I'm thinking, this is just my thought. I'm thinking that although I've spoken with someone and you also are kind of affirmed it, that regardless of the OOT clause, the problem we are having with government is that the loans they are taking, you don't know the loan clause, the clause they have. What is embedded inside that loan? Who are the companies behind the loan? You might hear, they are taking loan from China. China might be trying to also sell their brand. So they might take loan from AFD, this bank, that African, all those things they are getting back. And they might have their interest, okay, as far as they are getting a loan, you will buy our cars. So in as much as we have the laws, the politicians of they are the ones that have the word for word, the line for line, the loans they are taking and the clause. So in order for them to serve their master, because now they are kind of serving them, they have to just obey. So, politics is, government is kind of a very complex of, except people that are high integrity getting there before we can see like real change. So that's my own submission. Thank you.
So let's just make this point, right? There is no can company on earth, go and check it, on earth that has started, sustained, and is now doing well that did not use government subsidies, support, or patronage. There is none on earth. Tesla, Ford, GM. Ford will say that they did not take money from the government, but government buys their cars. They buy their cars. There is none. The Toyota got its start from making military vehicles for the Japanese army. So they grew with government contract. There is none. Indonesia, Turkey, go any Mercedes-Benz. Remember what they were doing? BMW were making aeroplanes for the German Air Force. Then they got banned. Then they faced and started to make cars. There is no car company on earth because cars are expensive to make, and you invest to make them, and you get your money back as you sell. So you need government support to guarantee that they're going to keep on getting revenues so that you can invest in capital projects. Again, if you just make an order to Innocent or not, you give them 1 billion order. Yes, that is good. But what those two car companies need is a consistent order from the federal, state, or local government that says every year we're going to get at least 5 billion. Once they can get this level of certainty, they can invest in capital equipment. Look, the North guy was here, like Ezekiel commented. He said steel, he imports the steel, he needs to press it. The machine to press the steel, if he brings it in, that's a cost to him, and he does not get the business to keep on pressing and selling. He makes a loss. They won't get anyone to put in banks anymore. So if he telling now, hey, Mr. Nord, we're going to give you a contract from Nigerian Customs. It's going to be for over 10 years. It's going to be every year you give us 20 cars. That's about 2 billion a year. Oh, so the man is going to make 20 billion over 10 years. Every year, 2 billion. That's a minute 2 billion. 2 billion is a minute rounding error to the Nigerian budget. Nord will take that 2 billion. He will run with it. Come back to him in 10 years, he has moved ahead. This is the point we're making. Mr. Fuller, what's your point, sir? Mr. Fuller, thanks for joining here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kalu. I'm kind of curious what happened to your previous account.
I lost my password to get in. That's what happened. So it's still there, but I can't get in. I lost my
Okay. Maybe you can reach out to the expert support or something.
It doesn't exist. Elon Musk fired all the humans. So when you write, a computer responds back to you. It's a loop. Twitter has no humans working for them anymore. It's astonishing. I found that out. So if you are on Twitter, please get your password, write them somewhere safe. If you do two-factor authentication, write it down somewhere and make sure you have a way to get back in if you lose your password. It's a very, very simple thing. I lost my password. They want me to use the phone that I used to create the Twitter account to log back in. The phone is long gone. And they don't have any human you can touch. You write to them, a computer responds to you. So Twitter has no customer service. Keep that in mind. I was a paying member. I'm a blue team member on that line. Twitter pays me when I post. So imagine it's their irony. They are paying me, but they are asking me to verify who I am. But Twitter is paying me. They need to pay me every month to post. But they are now telling me to verify who I am. It's nonsense. But Paula, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think it's a very interesting conversation, and I'm also of the opinion that government should prioritize, stimulating certain industries. But like you mentioned, there are some sectors, some industries that require huge capital, and then when you see people getting interested in that sector, regardless of the cost, they need government support. And, we see that with the cement industry, like you mentioned, and other industries like that. But I also want to believe that we're not talking about restricting, import of foreign vehicles, because most of the time, some of these policies, because they are so, driven by certain sentiment of, made in Nigeria would not, they always end up having to restrict imports. And what happens is that they monopolize sectors which don't have the capacity or the what they call economic scale, to produce at large quantity to supply to those who need, and then price goes up. So that is also a side of it that I think we should also consider. So while we're talking about stimulating certain sector by using subsidies, I also think it's a very fine idea about the fact of mandating government officials, which is in this case they get to have a lot of money, spend on all these foreign cars and putting more pressure on FS and whatnot. But I think that's a good side of it. Even if it's just the executive side part, because the locally produced cars also are expensive. We have to put that in considerations, and also the fact that when they import one of these parts, they are also expensive. Importing them is also part of importation. So what I think is that why we should champion or should advocate for government stimulating certain sectors by putting certain capital, and also there's also other structural approach to it. I think the government should look into creating ease of environment, creating certain policies that can guide domestic production at large, not just in the automotive sector, the automobile sector, all sectors generally, but in the long haul, I think there's also policies in place, like you mentioned. You've also mentioned them that if you bring in the parts, the spare part of the vehicles, you don't pay as much import duty as if you bring in the already made vehicles to the country. So there are some of the policies in place, but in terms of capital, yes, I completely agree with you on that. But it usually leads to putting restrictions, banning, and in some cases even encouraging inefficiency in the domestic aspect, in the domestic side. And I don't think that's what we also want, because even the cement you talk about, there's a downside to it. If you look at it, yes, Nigeria, we are producing cement, and we are employing people, but cement is now increasingly expensive over time due to that policy, because a lot of people don't have other alternative, from the import side, and it affects the VSC sector and other sectors, that need that particular critical commodity to facilitate sector. So I think it has its downside. It's all about time. I should be there.
I hear you. So again, you not mention this is a great policy, because the policy did not ban any imports. If you want to import a Bentley or a Toyota, it didn't ban it. All they did was to reduce or eliminate the import duty if you are bringing in cars to import locally. So the way it was, they left it alone. But they said if you want to create jobs in Nigeria, we will give you an incentive. That's what they've done. So you can import your Toyota SUV. That's fine. But if you want to import the Toyota SUV and not pay duty, in America, you decouple it. You put it on a ship, you bring it to Nigeria, you couple it back in Nigeria, because you have to pay in Nigeria to couple it back. The Nigerian you pay, of course, you have to eat, so the Nigerian is going to spend money on food. The food seller gets a job. The food seller has to buy rice, the farmer gets a job. So the multiplier effect of coupling in Nigeria far surpasses the multiplier effect of just bringing a fully built-in Toyota to Nigeria. So it's a great policy, and they've gone far to say the federal government will support you by patronizing locally assembled vehicles. It's in the policy. They said all states are going to work with states to also support you to patronize local vehicles. They said private companies working on government-funded projects should purchase your vehicle. So private companies can buy what they like. But if you are working with the federal government, if you are working on NNPC, on CBN, you have to buy a government vehicle, a locally assembled vehicle as your project vehicle. Now, they don't say innocent, they don't say nor, they say locally assembled vehicle, which means that they want Toyota to come to Nigeria, assemble locally, and then sell to the government. That's what they want, and it's a great policy. It's worked for cement, for orange juice, for recharge cards. It can work for cars, because in the past, Nigeria was a huge manufacturer of cars. We lost our way. Now we have a great policy to get us back in. Why are we allowing the Nigerian Customs Service, which is under the Ministry of Finance, which is under the coordinating minister of the government of the economy, Mr. Wale Edu, who is very close to the president? Why can he not stop the Nigerian Customs from buying and importing SUVs from Toyota abroad? It's a very simple, quick way to do. You don't do this, go against your own policy, they say you want to be a $1 trillion economy in 5 years. It doesn't work that way. Mr. WC, thanks for hanging on, sir. What's your take, sir? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Carlo. I'm so grateful. Good afternoon, everyone. For me, I like this topic. I think for me, when the campaign was going on, I was saying it that Nigeria should be thinking cars and exploring bitumen. For me, if you ask me, those are the easiest way of creating jobs for the teaming youth. Cars and bitumen. Why? Because we have one of the largest bitumen deposits in the world. So we shouldn't be having bad roads in the country that people are looking for jobs. You know. So we shouldn't be having that. That's that one. Then as for the cars, Nigeria has a large percentage of lithium. If you allow me to talk about that, I think by now the government, though I think they brought one Chinese firm.
Yeah.
The government should be looking at bringing more. Where I live here in Quebec is the provincial governor, the provincial premier, that's what they call it, that goes out and look for those businesses. So it brings them very often, because I follow the news, at least, not to exaggerate, I think in the last 1 year, it brought about 3 different lithium factories to be set up in Quebec here. So we should be desperate about it. We should not lose out. We should not let people be looking elsewhere. Maybe our neighbor will not have lithium, then the Chinese or whoever will not go there, and then we will just hang in. No.
Yeah.
So we should be deliberate about our lithium policy. Maybe one because someone said that even what do you call it? Processing it is where the money really is. It's not just mining it and bringing it out. No, it's in the processing. That one. Then we could also go ahead and begin to think of electric cars. Yes, you might say Nigeria doesn't have electricity, but we have to also be deliberate about moving forward.
We can export it. We can make and export. That's what Morocco is doing. Yeah, they are making and exporting.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have to also have that kind of plan. But I don't know what Elon Musk is going to do in Indonesia, but if Indonesia gets an electric vehicle manufacturing plant before Nigeria, I think that's not too good. So we should have some deliberate plan to get some of these people, investors, to come to Nigeria and see the market here. That's that. Then, what previous government under President Buhari had a very strong policy of buying local. So let's be very clear of that, because I recall that Innocent commended Buhari that he's done a lot in terms of buying local from him, especially in the military. The military gets a lot of innocent vehicles from him, And there's also one factory in Djibouti, I forgot the name I was trying to remember.
Prussia. They make
military vehicles too. I think those ones too are also expanding.
Yeah.
But whichever way, I think a lot of jobs can be created, to be honest, from our car industry in Nigeria, if we are very deliberate about it. We can even just look at maybe FRS. Maybe the FRS doesn't need a heavy duty vehicle so much. Okay, FRS will be buying permanently from local manufacturers and all of those, so I take it from there. I think that would be a good policy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome. Again, just to make the point again, Innocent was one that started this modern, locally owned, Nigerian owned, huge manufacturing of cars. He's gotten a lot of patronage across the board from all Nigerian presidents. Goodluck, Buhari, even have supported him. FRS uses a lot of Innocent cars. Yes, they've done that. In the North also got some patronage. The point is that I'm Oliver Twist. I want more. I want it written in the book to say that any contract you give, they must at least get 10 or 20%. Why? That's what the foreigners are doing. You cannot import a GM into China or Japan and not pay huge duty. That's what they are doing. Let's not make let's not excuse. They are buying more and more and more and more cars. So they must patronize our local guys. Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to chime in. Sorry,
yeah.
Just say it too. I will not. Okay. I wanted to also support the point as regards that there is no country in the world that doesn't get support of the government in car manufacturing. To be honest, even America,
Sure.
That is very advanced. Their car industry is very, very
They
advanced.
Yeah, they got
when they are in crisis mode, the government always comes to their aid.
Yeah.
It always, because it's people's jobs and it's generational, transgenerational jobs. Some of those factories are located in places that forefathers have been working, and so you don't want those kind of factories to go out.
That is very true. I mean, again, we need, it's not a question of, we need government patronage because it's our tax money and it's not going to innocent. Any car innocent is making or not is making, the multiplier effect, their workers are paying payee, their workers are buying from the market, farmers are getting paid, children are going to go to school because the government is patronizing one or two companies. Again, the policy has not said Nigeria, it has said if you are assembling locally. So all customs has to do is to tell Toyota, we will buy your Toyota, that's fine, but come locally and assemble that factory. Toyota can go to Innocent's factory or not factory and assemble. Companies do that and then pay them a fee to assemble. That's not a problem. But we can't be taking the scarce foreign reserves and taking it abroad to buy. That's the point we are making. I'm just from the room. Chinedu, you've got the point floor. Thanks, my David. I appreciate you, sir. Chinedu, please go ahead.
All right, thank you, Carmen. Well, I think you said most of the things. What I want to say is this. Most times we don't understand how supporting local industries will help to grow our economy. Like we are saying, if we are giving enough support to innocent, to Lord, that they have to begin to press some of these there, get what they need locally. This thing has ripple effects. The more money you give them, they will expand and they will employ more people. It seems that what the government of the day is interested in Nigeria is taxing. We are not really interested in expanding the economy so that more people get employed, because when you have more people employed, have sort of income, it reduces the pressure on the economy. Then again, people continue to say that the purchasing power of Nigerians, we can't buy new cars. But we see that politicians, big guys,
are buying new cars.
Guys in the entertainment industries are buying new cars. Why can't we just? I've talked about Nigeria so much. I've believed that this country will get better, that one day somebody will become a better leader, but it seems not to be coming. Now, what I do tell people is that we've gotten to a point where we do what an American president said. Don't think of what America will do for you, but what you can do for America. Let's start from that basic level and begin to invest in businesses. Perhaps Nigerians that are wealthy, sorry that I'm deviating a little bit, make so much money abroad, they come into the country. What they're interested in is building hostels, building hotels. Instead of building pure water factories, and no matter how little those factories are, we grow. So my point is this: in as much as we keep on pressuring the government or saying that there is need for them to do this, this is the way to go. But then, at individual levels, we should be able to patronize these guys. And again, I will advise, I don't know if the North guy is also here, these companies, local manufacturers need to get their branding right. Like Emerson are trying to improve at the moment, it was so bad before that. And again, I think they should also look at the economy and begin to produce something. I think Emerson did something like that when he was dealing on Keke Nape. He was able to couple something that will fit into the economy, what an average Nigerian can afford. If we can bring those things into manufacturing, things like European buses, those small buses, and vehicles that can be more affordable rather than those luxurious ones, so that even Nigerians, the middle class, can be able to. But then those who have the money, people will just import Rolls Royce and use it in videos, and I don't know if they're trying to intimidate others. let's buy
I mean, Chedu.
That way, we'll be able to grow our economy.
So,
and it will have a good effect.
Yeah, good point. I mean, just for put together the point, we're not against imports, we're not against people buying Rolls Royce. If you have the money, splurge. You've made the money, go ahead, knock yourself out.
I'm against it.
No. Chedu, we can't tell people to do their money. If they made their money, buy your Rolls Royce. I'm not going to go there. The point is this, right? If you want to grow an economy, the way it works is that you want to, we've said from how the economy works, net exports creates wealth in the country. Net export doesn't mean you cancel imports. It means you import, you export, but the net export is what creates wealth. The government wants to create wealth, hence it must look for ways to do import substitution. And car manufacturing is a way to do it. In the past, Nigeria built a lot of cars locally, or we are selling a lot of cars locally, but those cars we did locally were we imported the equipment from, say, Leland, Land Rover, all in Nigeria. That's why you saw this old Land Rovers in Nigeria. That company was assembling cars, Land Rover, in Nigeria. So we lost our way. Now we passed it, I think it was under Aganga. We passed this import policy on autos that says if you bring in CKD, it is zero. If you bring in the full car, you pay tax. The intent clearly says that, hey, bring in CKD.
If you gather from that ministry, and again,
you are interrupting.
And drop the mic. Now, how do we ensure that when we put money to stimulate these businesses, we don't end up with what we have in the cement industry? Monopoly.
There is no monopoly in the cement industry.
Even the cost.
There is no monopoly in the cement industry.
The price in Nigeria when compared to some other African countries.
Do you have that data? That data is correct. So I've checked this data before. I don't think it's correct. Listen, the problem with cement. I have done the research. Nigerians say this that the cost of cement outside. I've done the numbers. I don't think it is true. Nigerian cost is very, very high because anything in Nigeria is expensive. Not because of it's like saying Dangote cement is expensive, but pure water is not expensive. Everything in Nigeria is expensive. Everything. And cement is compare if Dangote was not making cement today, the cost of cement would be cheaper because you are importing, but you are taking away your net export argument. So again, remember the point. You can make cheaper imports, but only for a short time. You can't survive on import. Nigeria cannot survive on importing cement. We'll just go broke. That's the point. So Dangote, quote unquote, Boa, Northern Nigeria Cement Company, all those cement companies are that extra cost you pay is the quote unquote, I don't want to call it a tax, is the cost you have for having local production in the country. The same way when you go abroad, those guys, things are not as cheap as they are because they are there, but the jobs that are being created, that's the cost of having those industries in the country. You can import cheap rice, yes, but you keep local farmers. I've said import rice for a short time to kill inflation. You can't grow on your economy or build an economy on imports. It's not going to work. You've got to have a plan to say we are going to transit away. And the way you reduce costs is by increasing the output, the local output of the local manufacturers. The more car Nord and Innocent and other local assemblies can manufacture from Nigeria, then the less the cost is. It keeps on falling. The more you produce, the marginal cost keeps on coming down. So we've got to make sure that we give Nord and Innocent because they are Nigerian local guys. I get the Hyundai is local, but you support your brother first before you now go to your cousin. You get the point I'm making? Support the local Nigerian guys, the Nords, the Innocents first. Then you go to the foreigners that have local plants in Nigeria before you now even go to the other guys. We can't go from here with just say Toyota import SUVs. We've left Toyota Nigeria, we've left Nord, we've left Innocent. Who is signing this contract? Executive Order 003 says that whoever signed that contract, the procurement officer, the minister, the PAMSEC should be jailed. That's what the executive order 003 states. If you go outside local assemblies, you should be jailed. I put it on the Twitter timeline. I didn't write it. That's what the order says. Almost, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kalu. So, the auto industry is very complex, and it's rightly so. It's very sophisticated. Today there's ongoing competition between the US and China because of the auto industry. The US is trying to protect it, and rightly so, equally. But if you take it to, of course, our own local context here, we'll find some very troubling situation, because I think the question should be, why does our local manufacturers have to rely so much on government purchases? And you can just easily tell. Last year, I think I contacted vehicle, I think maybe the car is there, but it was 18.9 million naira, and 18.9 million naira for a brand new vehicle. It's way priced above the Nigerian middle class. It's unaffordable, basically unaffordable, and that's why you see that they are usually in touch with governments for government purchases, because the average Nigerian will not be able to afford it. And that brings the solution, which is financing. No, the auto industry cannot perform without auto financing. In the US, I think there's over 80% of vehicles are financed one way or the other, and in many countries, without auto financing, you basically have no auto industry. People who can't easily afford that out of their paycheck, even if they save for a year or 2 years, and so it's spread over a long period of time, and where of course they can pay back. But Nigeria, I don't think Nigeria has a robust auto financing structure, and do it may exist, I don't know, but I don't think we do. This situation is not peculiar to us. I believe there was an interview of Museveni that I watched at a particular time, the president for Uganda, and he was saying that he talked to Toyota because they make all their purchases, about 95% of the purchases they buy from Toyota, I believe. And he said that Toyota must have to have an assembly plant at least before they would make purchases for the following year. And it was totally unreasonable because it didn't make any sense. Because annually, Uganda makes purchases of 1,500 vehicles annually. And 95% of those purchases are from the government, so that's why Museveni was talking about it. But the issue is that Toyota sells or targets to sell over 10 million vehicles annually. There's no business case for the establishment of even an assembly plant. The best way is to import vehicles to Uganda. And so what purchases would Uganda guarantee for such plants is going to be strictly a loss-making venture. But the best case in Africa is South Africa. South Africa has, sells about over 350,000 vehicles every year, and of which government purchases about 11,000 vehicles. And so you see that it's targeted towards the retail side. That's where you find juice. That's where you find the base case for your auto industry. And so South Africa has Volkswagen assembly there. There's Mercedes, there's BMW assembly in South Africa. And so there's also other countries there, but of course Nigeria, majorly Nigeria imports used vehicles, and because of course the cost is the price way above what Nigerians could ever afford. And so the solution, I don't think the emphasis of the government making purchases enough for the auto industry. It's very sophisticated. I've listened to an interview of Rivian. I don't know if you know Rivian. The interview of Rivian, CEO of Rivian, and he was talking about how hard it was for him to get his auto company up and running. It's very difficult. There's collaborations that would make you collaborate with over 1,000 people, 1,000 vendors, I believe. And there's also Xiaomi released a vehicle recently, SU7, and he had to collaborate with other three legacy automakers in China to have this happen. Apple pulled out of the auto industry because it was the vehicle at the end would have been too expensive for regular people to buy. It's very expensive, very, very expensive.
I think you made some great points. I think you made some great points there in the auto finance and the rest. Wonderful points.
So,
I think.
So the essence is that I believe the auto companies in Nigeria need to work with the government to get a framework to prioritize auto finance because the target needs to leave the government and go to general populace. Nigerians, when they buy vehicle, they buy used vehicles, so the price needs to come down. And of course, they can only do this if they domesticate auto technology, like foundries and pressing of vehicles, especially the steel industry. It has to be up and running to need to have a sustainable auto industry. And of course, the issue about Nigerians not preferring legacy automakers, I don't think it exists because in many countries, people drive new vehicles every day. It's the comparative advantage I do, and that's the job of auto manufacturers to market their vehicles against a 10 years old vehicle. You can't compare the advantage to that. So I just think like this ball is to be played by the auto companies themselves, and federal government does not necessarily need to make purchases of their vehicles. There are greater stuff the government could do, like prioritizing auto financing and making policies that will help them domesticate technology, especially the steel industry.
But even if you talk about Rivian, you can't name any auto company in the world, even till today, that has not gotten either venture capital, patronage, access to market, restriction to market from the government. You can't name one, not one on earth. Because, like you said, auto company is a very, very complex business. You have to build something and get people to buy it. So you spend money upfront, then you try to recoup your funds before you even build the next one. So no company can survive that or without the import. In the past, Nigeria will simply ban, we're going to ban import, we're going to ban Mercedes-Benz, but they didn't ban in this case. They said, do what you want to do. If you are Mercedes-Benz, import or export what you want to do. But if you want the government to buy Mercedes-Benz, localize it, assemble it, they didn't even give you criteria. So all Mercedes-Benz has to do is to bring a car to Nigeria, put the tires in. Does that count as assembly? It may, but a human in Nigeria has to put tires in. So the government is even trying. They're not even giving you strict rules like in China. What China will say 20% local content. Local content laws in Nigeria are already there. We've gone further to say executive order 003, localize these things because we want to create an industry. Remember, governance is about creating general good. General good. The only way you can create general good in Nigeria is to socialize these things. It's not privatization. It's not going to be capitalist. It's not going to be that let's go for profit centers. We're looking for the lowest point. We want to lift that low point up to sort of get equity across the value chain. The government has said this. If you want to sell cars to NNPC, then those cars have got to be assembled locally. If you don't want that business, you don't have to. Hiace can be assembled locally. Why can't it be assembled locally? Innocent is assembled locally. So let's face that one first. Then we can then go further and say, oh, the government, you can't only insist that only assembled cars would make the local industry for cars boom. Also pass things like consumer credits, which they've done. The government has passed a consumer credit law. They have an agency now in Abuja already now asking for folks to apply for credit. So we can extend that whole discussion around the purchasing, the insurance, the access to markets, low cost funding to buy cars across the board. But the government's budget has got to be directed to create general good for Nigerians, be it north, in the southwest, be it innocent in the southeast, be it span in the northwest. We've got to look for opportunities to grow wealth locally with the government money. That's what we're looking for. And I think there's already a law out there. We're not arguing there should be a law. There's already a law, Executive Order 003. Implement it. It was passed by General Buhari. Implement it. Buhari passed, signed it, it's been gazetted. I published the gazette on my TL. So it's there. Implement the law. It's the same party. Mr. Buhari cannot say he wants to support local cars. He passed the gazette that says you should support local cars. Then you come and increase tax and allow customs to import cars. Again, customs is under the coordinating minister of the economy, Mr. Wale Edu. Mr. Wale Edu understands economics. He knows the power of local import substitution. He wants to have a stronger naira. The CBN wants to have a stronger naira. You don't have a stronger naira by importing solely wholly built cars from Toyota or Japan. Even worse, there's Toyota Nigeria. Why not buy the cars from Toyota Nigeria? Let me yield to, I can't pronounce your name, sir. Sir X. Did I get that right? Sir.
Okay. Yes, that's okay.
Omashe, thank you very much. I appreciate the comments, Omashe. Yeah. Sir X, please.
Yeah, I just want to make a point about the automobile industry in Nigeria. Thanks to Northern ANOC for what they are doing. But my point is, I think maybe we are just to focus in the white collar kind of automobile in Nigeria. That's why most times when we discuss, we talk about the purchasing power of Nigeria. Because when these people produce this kind of 2024 car that they are using all over the world, it's kind of be too expensive for an average Nigeria or a middle class Nigeria to purchase. However, maybe do something that is not this kind of 2024 flashy car that maybe they are using in other parts of the world that can meet the average Nigerian budget. I think some of all these functionalities that do come to this car are barely used in Nigeria, so it doesn't really matter. And another thing, I think we should drive towards industrialization. So these companies can make mini cars like mini truck, mini van that artisans or let's say farmers can purchase and can purchase that are not too expensive, that we aid their activities, maybe aid their farming process and all that things. And by so doing, maybe it will just be like cars that works within carrying their commodities from maybe farm to the market, maybe something like mini truck that you can use in farm during farming time and can also help to transport them to the city. And they don't need all this GPS and all this sophisticated technology in it to just cut down the cost. Then they can have a 10 years plan, 20 years plan to catch up with the world. They can, if you go to some countries, there are these minivans that artisans use. You see carpenters, just people who do carpenters, they have their own kind of minivan that is customized to their own standard, where they have a ladder at the top, even painters, electricians. They are just minivans for almost all artisans or all skills of life. And I think something like that we kind of work in Nigeria. Not too expensive, what the Nigerian average middle class can purchase to drive the economy. In 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, they can start catching up with making the kind of 21st century vehicle that comes with GPS and every other thing. So that's just my point. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, I want to get what you said is totally correct. Like, again, it's the same comments that I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. The local car companies have a lot to do. They have a lot to build cars that Nigerians want. Stronger, very durable, very low. We don't need all those bells and whistles. Just a car for the farm or a car to take plantain from Ogun State to Lagos State. We need those kind of cars. But the point again is this, right? We're talking about how to grow wealth, how to grow an economy. We'll give an example with cement, with orange juice, with recharge cards, and we're saying a law already exists. So in this case, we're saying we have no excuse. The law exists. We've seen it work before. Nigeria was a car manufacturing hub in the past. Look at the 1960s. There's Volkswagen in Nigeria. There's Mercedes-Benz in Nigeria. These are the two largest car companies by volume across the world. They are in Nigeria. Why were they here? Because there was a good economic climate. Now they've gone. To bring them back, we'll pass the button that says, bring in your goods CKD. So all Toyota has to do, and I'm referring to the customs contract. We're talking about the customs contract now, right? Bring in those cars CKD and assemble. I'm arguing with the guy on Twitter. He's saying Toyota has some assembly plants in Nigeria, and that particular truck they want to buy for customs is not assembled in Nigeria. Then don't buy it. We can't change our law for customs. Customs cannot say they want private jet, hence we must buy it for them. No. Customs are part of the Nigerian government. They are under the Ministry of Finance. They should buy what the law says they should buy. What's the difference between that particular truck and any other Toyota Hiace truck? What's the difference? If there's a compelling reason why that truck should be bought, then let Toyota come and assemble it locally. Otherwise, everyone will have an excuse. Then Mamsa will say they want to buy Bentley Jeep. Why can't they buy Bentley Jeep? Why should we give Toyota an exception? I don't think we should. If they want that particular truck, it's a very simple point. Assemble it locally or buy a truck that can be assembled locally. It's really that simple. Do you have a follow-up point, sir?
Yes, actually, yes. I just want to address a few things in addition to what you said. I 100% agree with you. I only brought in the purchasing power, people's purchasing power, because, like you rightly said, I remember back in the 80s and the 90s, my neighbors, my cousins, actually bought new 504.
Yeah.
And they bought it for I remember some bought it for 1,500, some bought it for 3,000. This is not far. Late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, 90s, we saw it. But in addition to government patronizing these guys, I think there are a few other things that government can also do to help. I think government should be able to give us some incentive, right? For instance, in the UK, if you buy electric car as at 2 years ago, the government will give you £4,000, and the government will come and fix charging ports in your house free of charge, right? In America, you already know what Biden infrastructure development bill is doing. I think they want to have about 500,000 charging points all across the US. And what is this? They're giving grants and financial support to people like charge points and all that to have all that assembled. We all know when Tesla got money from them in 2000 from the government in 2003, to thrive. Now, there was a question I asked in Nokia today. You brought in I made an analogy. I said we have heat from the sun. SUN Sierra Uniform November. In Nigeria, and it's round the clock. It's not like in the Western world where you have the winter and the summer and all that. We have heat from the sun round the clock. Why is it not taking off with electric vehicles? Because I foresee a future where we would have to battle the Western world about using fuel or using gasoline powered vehicle, just like they are trying to stop down our next issue of LGBTQ. So I think he said something like they needed some support with infrastructure. So governments can come up with ideas that would enable Nigerians, some Nigerians. I remember my cousin when he was in Zenith Bank back in the day, not back in the days, it wasn't this far, I think it was in the 2000s. There was a car finance that Toyota had that you buy it and every month he was paying 50,000 naira. And bankers to be able to do that because they have job security and they have their employers to guarantee them. I think things like that could be expanded just in case anyone is listening from the government if they will do something about it. So I kind of believe that in addition to government patronizing, government can also go ahead, can also expand that support, to place certain elements in place that would help the citizens, those who have the purchasing power, or those even who don't have the purchasing power, to be able to afford this, But supporting the locally made vehicle, that's a no-brainer. There's no even argument about that. Nord and Innocent should be getting 100% support from government because that's how it's done all over the world. Everybody knows that. That's what I just wanted to
I think I hear you with that solar. I'll even up you with the CNG. I think the CNG is one area where I think that Nigeria has a huge advantage. And I don't want to knock Innocent. I'm not knocking him. The guy is he knows better than I in that industry. But if I was Innocent, right, I would have built my entire car company around CNG because Nigeria is a country that has a small bit of oil in a large gas pool. Nigeria is a gas country. If Nord starts to build gas cars, he differentiates himself, number one. If he can then try to start to build gas filling station, if he can have a second company or other companies can build this gas filling station, not just across Nigeria, across West Africa, then you are locking in long-term demand because gas CNG cars will go further. further than a petrol car. It's cleaner. He will even get subsidies from the West. So no, if Innocent was 100% CNG, everything you do is CNG, that's the differentiator. He gets an extra leg up in that now he's now a strategic partner in Nigeria. The government has said going forward, they only want to do CNG purchases. You watch, Toyota's going to come here and do CNG. Other guys are going to do CNG, but Innocent's already here. So if he can try to start to look at that, I know they're doing buses now CNG, but those CNG cars really are a big increase in his product line because he can then sell cars or keke that can go further, longer without trying to buy gas that is expensive. So he gets a differentiator. He can grow market share away from the imports. So if you're importing a car, you have to consider that, Innocent is going to sell a brand new car, but that brand new car is going to be cheaper to run. Banks would love a gas-powered car because they can go for their trips all over the whole Nigeria without paying less in terms of power. So I completely hear you on solar, but I think the real advantage for him is in that CNG. And you can do CNG that will power batteries and do battery exchange. You can do a hybrid like how Tesla is doing Tesla charging stations. You can do a gas-powered battery station. You drive your bus in there, they swap the battery, put it in there. I saw Keke doing battery swapping. Local setup. You bring your Keke somewhere, one guy takes the battery off, give you a new battery, you drive away. You can scale these things. These are like job creating things. You go to the Keke guys and say, okay, we're going to convert all the Keke in Nigeria to using gas or solar powered battery. You've done many jobs you've created just on the kits, the training, the scanning, everything you've created there. You have to. It's just so much we can do with this.
But what you're saying is true. That battery swapping is actually a big game changer. I don't know if you noticed when NIO, the Chinese company started it. NIO is doing battery swapping now.
Yeah.
So rather than you going to charging points and spending 30 minutes to hours charging your car, you just get there, they swap your battery, give you another battery off you go.
Yeah, precisely. I mean,
That's what
you do that in Nigeria. Imagine if you have all those vulcanizers, they have a battery swapping port with them. So you have vulcanizers, you have petrol stations, you have even the guys selling Fanta and Coke. You have 5 battery stations just beside them. So you just drive your Okada there, they swap your battery. Once you swap a battery, the company pays you. Look at what you're creating. You create a network across Nigeria or I can just create jobs across the board. I can put battery swappers at the front of my shop. You can drive there and swap and move on. We have to create, think global, act local. We have to localize these things, how it works for us. I saw in India, most of the kekes are using CNG. Their kekes, and they have meter on their kekes, but it's still the same keke that we bought from India. So our one is using gas and all that, but theirs uses gas and has the digital meter that reads how far you've gone so you can pay your duties and all that. Even how you can pay with cashless. So we have to up our game. We have gas, we have the people, we have the mechanics. Let's localize this thing and move on. Is it a nice follow-up comment there?
Yeah, thanks. In the video, I can even do that. I'm going to share with you. If I'm able to, I'll share the video here. A few weeks ago, I saw this. I watched in North Carolina. I don't know if you've seen it anywhere in the US. It was mind-blowing. So even individual can have a battery swapping kind of center where you go in. If you have 500 cars, you can swap battery. I will share that video here, or I can send it to you directly. If you see that car washing setup, it's mind-blowing. You do everything yourself. You just need a guy to let you in at the gate, and you do everything yourself. I saw it in North Carolina. I saw it somewhere in Charlotte, in North Carolina, a few weeks ago. I was really impressed. I had to make a video about it. So this battery swapping thing, even individuals can come in with their money, 2, 3, 5 people, and do things like that in place and make money off it. It's all value chain.
I hear you. Yeah, good point. I think we have to take opportunities because, again, I've said this before. The only reason why we're talking about oil and gas today is because of the Ukraine war. Before the Ukraine war, the United States and Europe banned all new investment in crude oil. So that means that no US or European bank will fund any crude oil project going forward. The European Industrial Bank banned all. They banned all. The US banned all new So if any new project that is crude oil, the US banks will not have funded before the Ukraine war. Now, they were trying to include gas into that equation. To say that gas itself is dirty. So even LNG would have gotten banned. If you want to try and go back and look at when VP Oshibanjo went to Dubai to go and fight Nigeria's people, how can you ban crude oil and include gas? That gas is dirty. The Americans say gas is dirty. I don't know how gas is dirty, but they want to ban it as well. Which means that once they settle their war with Russia, because eventually they will settle that war with Russia, they will come back and start to ban crude oil. Crude oil is not going to go anywhere. There will still be crude oil, but it will be too expensive. They will make it too expensive with taxes, with duties, with whatever cost. They will make it so expensive that the average American won't be able to afford it. But what will be cheap? They will subsidize alternatives. Solar powered cars and all that cars will be very, very cheap. So what you're going to have is that the little oil that is sold in America is not going to be sold by Saudi Arabia and the other countries, not Nigeria. Why? Because Saudi Arabia has been very smart. They bought refineries inside the US. They bought ports at the US. They have tankers. So all Saudi is doing now is that it will ship its own oil to a US refinery in the US, refine their oil with US shale, which is has less sulfur, and sell their own oil locally in the US. So it's not even going to be an import. It's going to be local Saudi oil being sold in the US. Same thing with what they're doing in Korea. Any refinery you start now, Saudi is buying into your refinery. South Korea, they are buying into refineries. Same thing with India. They are also going to India to do long-term deals with them. Russia is looking at India. Where is Nigeria's two largest market for crude oil? It's India. That's our key market, India. Now, Russia is going to go after India. Even the US is now an exporter of crude oil. Going to go after India. What's the point I'm making? When we see ourselves in 10 years' time with a lot of crude oil and no one to sell that crude oil to. Gas is still possible to sell that gas. So the sooner we start to transit away from an economy that depends on crude oil exports to survive to an economy that depends on gas to survive, the better for us. What Russia did with Europe with their gas is what Nigeria should do to West Africa with our gas. Connect all of West Africa. Forget this Algeria, Europe. Connect Africa with Nigerian gas. Put it in there so that you can then make them pay you in Naira, and instantly your Naira gains value. Because if every year Togo, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana have to take dollars and change to Naira to pay NPC, your Naira will never lose value. That's what the US is doing. That's what Russia is doing. That's why Russian ruble is so strong, because you still have to go and buy their exports. So we have to think long term about this. Move away from crude oil into gas whilst there's still time. Once this war with Russia stops, they will go back to this quote-unquote green economy. I like green economy, but I also now want my kids to eat food. And in Nigeria, the Naira is a derivative of crude oil. So the point again is this. Get out of crude oil today, go into gas or diversify your economy before it's too late. They've already given you the warning shots. Don't let them come back and finish you off. That's my point. Mr. Luca, thanks for hopping in here. Lulu. So Lula Nakas? Lulu, how are you doing, sir?
Very fine, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, sir.
I know everything you've been saying makes sense. In fact, you've been saying all this for as long as I can remember. But however, the people in power are they listening? I don't think so, because we know what's happening. This rent-seeking kind of government, which is prevalent everywhere, really. So most of these investments in the future, I don't think they really think about them. So, well, I hope some people who can actually effect change are listening here. My contribution here is to the average Nigerian who is on this space, who is listening. So I myself consider myself someone who has locked out of the system a long time ago. We saw all this coming after studying the Keynes
the Keynes economic theory and everything, and we see where this is going, and we decided to log out of the system. Now, if you're listening, like you're in Nigeria, living in Nigeria, please, it's time for you, if you have land, if you're lucky to have land, grow your own food, be self-sufficient, make sure you are saving in hard currency, and something that, any currency that can, keep your purchasing power long term. As for me, I use Bitcoin, and it has really helped me. All my mates that saved in Naira were shouting for how long, please save your money here, do this, do that. Many of them are crying today, even the US dollar is depreciating, all fiat currencies are depreciating. In fact, if you look at the historical trend, you can see what's happening. So it's time for you to be self-sufficient. If you have land now, put it to good use. Use it to grow your agri stuff. Use it for local production. If you can, if it's cheap for you, look for alternative power sources. If you can, if you can afford it, it's better for you. Whatever you can, just try and be a self-sovereign individual. It's going to save you a lot long term, because as we are seeing, this rent-seeking system, it's going to keep, reducing the purchasing power of every individual. So you have to be smart with your money, smart with your resources. If you can get land, like I keep saying, get land. If you can put it to use, fine. Cultivate the land, let the land work. Productivity, nothing beats it. So you have to do your due diligence. So producing locally, making locally assembled goods and so on. Of course, that's what we have been doing since, but since 1986, when, IMF and the rest of them came and started convincing our leaders that it is okay for you to take on huge debts, print money out of thin air. They started devaluing the economy and turning it into a rent-seeking kind of system. We've seen how that played out. We can see what it has cost up to this point, and nobody is saying anything. The few people that come online to speak about these things, they are abused. They see us as crazy. If Carlo talks now and says, "Oh, this is what you should do," I'm sure that more than half of his timeline will be full of people that are accusing him. so these are the things that we see every day. So it's very, very important. If you're a Nigerian here, if you have land in your village, go and put it to good use. Cultivate food. You understand? Be self-sufficient. If you can afford solar, fine. If you can get a gas tank, fine. Do that. Use the gas to get yourself some energy. If you can get solar, fine. Grow your own food. Because things will keep going downhill from here. It's not a doomsday prophecy, but that is what we can see with, looking back at the historical trend. So that's my two stats.
All right, I hear you. I mean, this is the nuts and bolts of it. The dollar is going up. You want the currencies are fluctuating. You want us to save in Bitcoin. We hear you. It's an argument I've heard lots of times. The fact is that you have to compare Naira. The purchasing power of Naira is what is falling, because you are referencing to dollar. So the cost of the car in America, has it fallen by 10% in the last 10 years? What the inflation is in America, if you remove the Ukraine war, which cost is going to go to 9% and all that. Remember that under Obama was in office from 2007, I believe. Obama printed a humongous amount of money under QE1, that's quoted easy 1, QE2, and even QE3, under Mr. Ben Bernanke. What was the inflation in America when they printed all that? Did he get to 3%? He didn't. So lots of printing in America did lead to inflation. The dollar lost value, yes, but what about the Naira? If you compare the Naira to the dollar, about 722% loss, I think I calculated in the last 10 years. 722. If you bought $1 in the year 2015 and you held it till this year, 2024, simply holding that piece of paper would be your best performing asset class. And that's a bad data point for Nigeria, that the currency has fallen so low, and so low. And the irony is that Nigeria actually needs a weak currency. Because with a weak currency, Nigeria can export more crude oil, even if it's the same volume or lower volumes, and get the same naira. If you look at the FARC sharing allocation, you will see exchange rate differential is a part of the profit that is shared. So when naira loses value, the federal, state, and local governments get more money from FARC, because your country losing value actually creates revenues for the federal and state government. So it's not a good thing. I get it, it's not a good thing, but the problem again, like I wrote last week, is not the exchange rate per se. No one cares about the exchange rate. The problem is that it's very expensive to manufacture locally. Power supply, insecurity, taxes are very high. So if we had a weak currency, but we had a lower cost of doing business, we will not really mind, because we'll be able to compensate for the weak currency by making goods cheaper locally that can be exported, which then makes our currency retain its value. But we'll have the double whammy of low purchasing power and high cost of doing business. So that's double whammy. Next, thanks for your comments. Appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry, Carlo, to interject there. Yes, you are right with what you just said. You know, if we're a producing nation, actually, right now, many of us would have been smiling, because our exports, would have been, letting us some real value. However, we aren't. Now, secondly, you talked about the printing done by the U.S. during the Obama regime, Q1. That's what the quantitative easing, easing rather. Yeah. Remember what these people do. You get, once they print that money, you don't. Yes, a huge portion of it goes to defense. Then another portion of it, huge portion of it goes to the IMF, World Bank. And what do these people do with that money? They get that money out to countries like Africa,
Hold on. What do you mean that Fed gives money to the World Bank? Is that what you said?
Yes, the Fed gives money to the World Bank.
It doesn't.
You understand?
It does not.
Through the American government, they do. They fund the
World Bank. It does
the biggest funders are the US.
But not.
Who prints the dollars for the World Bank?
It's the US government and every country on earth, including Nigeria. It's not the Fed. The Fed does not give money to the World Bank. It's not the Fed. It's the US government, the Treasury, not the Fed. And I don't want to get into the weeds, but watch us. The Fed prints currency, but it's the US budget that funds a part of the World Bank. The budget, not the Fed. The Fed is not the budget.
Yes. Where I'm driving to is this. Part of that money that is printed goes out to African economies, and as they go out as loans, and these loans given by the IMF and World Bank are used to promote the US ideals and whatever they do there, with all the conditions and whatever they give while giving out these loans. And these loans come with interest. Now, this interest also subsidizes when they give out that interest, there's interest on it. It also subsidizes the inflation that would have resulted from this excess money printing that they do. Remember, you understand? So the loans are not more like out of the benevolence of their heart. They are funding.
But this is what I hear you, but bro. But this is a conflict you're sharing, that, right? And number two, what's the volume of this money you're talking about? What's World Bank's project? World Bank's budget is not up to the library system of New York. What's World Bank's budget for 2024? Let's Google it. What's their budget? I'm Googling it right now. It's not a lot. Yeah, it's not a lot. So what's the of everything, their total budget is how much? 13 billion. 11 billion. That's their total budget. The US is borrowing a trillion a month. 1 trillion a month, that's what they are borrowing. So it's not, it doesn't even jive.
Okay, that's their spend, their own spending budget, or what they give out as a loan. You have to, if you say their budget, it could be
the total is 120. Yeah, 128 billion. 128 billion. 128 billion. Yeah, Africa got 36 billion. 36 billion will not show up in the US budget as a rounding error. 36 billion. It won't show up it won't show up as a rounding error in the US budget. It won't.
Okay, so how do they manage the inflation that would have resulted from their excess printing? They should be able to accept their line with their figures.
Because they have all these companies called Facebook.
Because you can't print that kind of money and you wouldn't see.
I'll tell you where his money went to them. Because they have a very, very highly productive economy. So the excess capital goes to Facebook, Snapchat, Amazon. Those companies soaked up all that free capital and built new industries. So in America, all that excess capital was taken by the stock market, deployed, and they created new jobs. That's the efficiency and the effectiveness of the US stock market. That's what happened. It was soaked up, and then you had brand new companies being created that did not exist before. The only America has got FANG, or the Alphabet, or the Googles. Only America, because they printed and they allow you to take risks, and those risks show up in the stock market in those new quote unquote. Which other European company have you heard in last year? Maybe China has TikTok. Apart from that, which other company have you heard about? Okay, then Denmark has this drug that makes you, if you're fat, you get slim. Apart from that, what else have you heard from Europe? Nothing. That's why America doesn't have an inflation, because they take that money that they print and it goes to create new jobs, new industries, new ways of doing things. Yeah. That's what's going on.
Right, but it's still cheating. It's still cheating. You can't just create money from thin air. That Chinese economic principle.
Yes, it's cheating.
Like when I think of it, it gives me headache.
I agree it's cheating, but it's the world we live in. I agree it's cheating. US has got the French book called the US dollar, the extraordinary advantage. I agree it's cheating, but it's the world we live in. They print the dollar, and they print and they buy your crude oil what they print, but what are you going to do about it? Nothing. You've got to deal with the world you live in, bro. That's what I'm saying, That's the world you live in. Right? That's the world you live in. The dollar is the reserve currency of the world. I just looked at the dollar's contribution to the world reserve. It's still above 80%. So the dollar is not going anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. Anybody's thinking that yuan or BRICS or any other currency is going to save you, you are mistaken. The dollar is going to be here for a long time before it will go away. Maybe the year 3025, maybe it will go away. But for now, the world revolves around the US dollar, and to get rich, you have to get US dollar by net exports. That's the game. You want to do net exports. You can import whatever you like and export whatever you like, net exports. Look at Dangote today. Dangote today is importing crude oil and exporting PMS. 10 years ago, Nigeria was exporting crude oil and exporting PMS. It was the other way around. We were exporting crude oil and importing PMS. Now we've reversed it, because you have to do net exports. So the issue is not import. Those that were shouting import. Dangote is now importing crude oil. What did we say? Nothing, because the game is net exports. You've got to export more, which is why, going back to our topic, if Nigeria takes the small revenues that she's making from the export of crude oil, because Nigeria is a crude oil-based economy, if we export crude oil and we need to buy goods from Japan that we can make locally, then it's just 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and in the end, we basically are the ones that are going to pay that cost. Alright guys, let's run through the end and we're going to let you guys go. I know lots of Arsenal fans still need to go sleep early today, but I'm just going to real quick. Kalu, yes, let me just look for one that is now. Yeah, Kalu, real quick topic. What year was the executive order. The executive order 003 was passed in 2017. So it was signed by President Muhammad Buhari in 2017. That's an executive order on the local content. So the real roots of that law is the Local Content Act. I think it was passed under President Goodluck Jonathan. The executive order 003 was passed by the president of Muhammadu Buhari. So it's the policy of the APC. They push the policy that if you don't use locally assembled cars, you should go to jail. I put the policy up, I put the gazette up, it's there. So if that is the law of the land, then why is customs being allowed to import cars? That's just a simple question. The law says that anyone, the permanent secretary, the president officer that imports those cars can go to jail. That's what the law says. You can go to jail. So then if they can go to jail, why are you allowing them to buy? That's it. So that's the question. Number two, Toyota has an assembly plants in Nigeria. So maybe they're not buying those. These Toyota trucks, they quoted the trucks, it's the V6. It's those trucks that you see them using all those, they call them technicals. They are very, very sturdy. They don't make them in Nigeria. They're going to be imported under one contract from Toyota. They're not hires. It's not Toyota hires trucks. They're going to be imports. So it's about 21 billion to import this truck. So we should actually get them here in Nigeria. That's the point I'm making. We should not import them from Toyota. If Toyota can make them locally, go to somebody else that would do them locally for you. We should not. We have very, very lax, very, very limited forex. We should use that forex to import. That's the point. Again, I'm making. Okay, number three. Why is the Central Bank of Nigeria not clamping down on? I agree with you. Why is the Central Bank of Nigeria approve? Yes. Okay, you are saying that the Central Bank is the one that's going to approve the dollars for this import. So why is the Central Bank of Nigeria not clamping down? I think that's a good question. Why should the Central Bank of Nigeria approve this or contract for the Nigerian customs, which is clearly against the laws of Nigeria? Executive Order 003 states that you have to patronize locally assembled cars if you're a federal agency. It even states if you're a private agency and you are doing business with the federal government, you have to use locally assembled cars. That is the law of the land, both in local content, both in executive order. So it should be a law that also follows customs. They should not have any exemption to that, right? Excellent. Which other one is here? Lots of questions here, guys. You've already asked, and I think we will answer it during the course of our space. We are approaching 7 minutes to top the hour, so it might be a good time to sort of like wind down the space. We've been here for give or take about an hour, 52 minutes, so we can wind down now. Give you guys an early Sunday off. We've been talking, gentlemen and ladies, about the import policy of Nigeria. We asked the question, should Nigeria import cars that can be assembled locally? Of course, the answer to that question was no, because we are backed up by law that says they should not. But we went further. We said when you import, you are using your scarce foreign resources. And the way you create wealth is to convert your scarce foreign resources to net export. So you can import machinery and then use that machinery to make local goods which you export, so that you are always on the positive. That's how you create wealth. That's the largest importers in the world are the US and China. The largest exporters are the US and China. The largest economies on earth are the US and China. It's not a coincidence that the more you import and the more you have net exports, the better your country works. It's not a coincidence. We've shown that. Hence, our question is not really on cars per se, but on the total net and lot. We thank you for all the speakers that have commented on this topic, giving us new insights. Quick one, Doctor. I just saw your request. I wanted to make sure I give you a quick time to speak before we shut down. Doctor, go ahead, real quick. Doc. My sister Doc from Australia, going once, going twice. All right, guys. So on that note, guys.
Hello?
Hey, Doc, I can hear you now. Please go ahead, real quick. What
Morning. I got my way clear today. It's Monday morning, and I will be late. I'm I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, the topic is captivating. Should Nigeria import cars can be assembled locally? Should Nigeria even import anything at all that we can make locally? The answer should be no. If we have farmland and we can farm here, why should we import it?
Yeah.
We are a poor nation already. Everything we are doing should be focused on growing the little we have.
Completely agree.
You know, we cannot be carrying from the very little we have, and then, you cannot just, source for this very scarce FS right now in Nigeria. You source for it, put it together, and then you carry it to another country to purchase what you could easily make.
True.
We have the manpower in Nigeria, we have the technology, we have smart guys. We have Nigerians who would sit down and repair a Toyota that they were not there when they make it. They didn't go for training, but they can repair it.
Exactly.
Now, if these guys can do it, if you give them the right tools, they can make it. Right? So, if we can grow locally, we can now export and make more money. Because the pressure on Naira, when you do this, is when you go out to import, you are putting a lot of pressure on Naira.
True.
And when there is pressure, it will fall. And if it falls rapidly, the people will suffer.
True.
I read on the news, the custom import cars, the National Assembly buys SUV, and I'm asking why? Why would they do? These are the people that should lead by example. If you are leading, you lead by example. We have North, we have Innocent, you can even have more.
But unfortunately, ma'am, they are not leading by example, and I think that's why we're on a space. We want to give folks information so that Monday morning you can forward. I put the data out there, I put the executive order, forward it to your congressman, to your senator or your legislator, and ask those questions. It's your tax money.
Exactly. It's annoying when
I think we lost you, Prof. Not a problem, Doctor. I think we lost you there. But I think your sentiments are well taken. I think we lost you, Doctor. If you're speaking, I think we lost you. Sorry about that. Yeah, so it's point well taken. Point well taken. That we have to hold the government to account on its own words and its own policies. That's how we grow the economy, when we hold the government to its own words. All right, guys, I will see you here next week, Sunday, 7 p.m. on the topic about money, finance, and of course the economy. Don't forget, my name is Kalu Aja. If you are interested in personal finance, guess what? I wrote a great book. It's available on Amazon, also available in Rolling Heights bookstore. Let's talk about your money. That's the title. 422 pages of my 20 years experience working in Nigeria, United States, in private banking, asset management, private equity, really brand management, really all you want to know about money in simple words, lots of pictures for you to follow and learn. It's a doing book. It's a book that you read and refer to all the time, and I think you would love it as a gift or for yourself. So do get it, and it will bless you. Thank you, folks. I will see you all here next week. Have a good one, and bye.